Hi. Remember when I said I was going to talk about long lines? Yeah, well, fun fact, I went out to record the footage for that episode 3 times. 3 times. And each time the alignment on this camera got that much worse, even though I fixed it, at least I thought, time and time again. So that footage is gone, and I'm not going to do it again. Maybe I'll upload like some snippets of what I do have, but it's not going to be a full episode. But I still want a video out. So we're talking about this today. This is an DNW-S280, and it is by far my favorite deck. My name is Archer Ford. I make tutorials about standard definition audio and video equipment, as well as documentaries on outdated historical concepts that pioneer the world that we live in today. If you like the look of the 1990s, then you bumped into the right idiot. Welcome back to Life in Standard Def, where we take new videos and make them look crappy on purpose. You're currently watching this off a camera from 1996. It's a DSR 300, and it records in 480i. It takes me way too much effort to get YouTube to understand this, but I do it because I'm a masochist. Anyway, this is a Betacam playback deck. Now, a little bit of history on Betacam. Betacam is the component format that superseded the composite format that, I don't know, ran for decades and decades prior. I'm not a historian, and I'm tired. Now, before we keep going on this topic, I need to clear some things. This is Betacam, not Betamax. Okay, we clear? Good? All right. Betacam's primary job was to record on component, not composite. So all of the signals were completely separated, and it made it unbelievably clean and high quality for studio use. That was its primary job. What happened over the years, though, is as the format developed and changed and got more advanced, we went from analog to advanced analog to digital and then more advanced digital. That's kind of the funny thing about these. Yeah, they're tape, but some of these have analog waveforms and other ones have ones and zeros. So Betacam is a very versatile format that changed a lot. It adapted quite a bit over its lifespan. Unfortunately, what that means, though, is in terms of recording and playback, there's not a lot of decks that can do this, at least on the multi-format level. The ones that can, I think, HDW-2000, I want to say is the model name. I have not kept up with this recently because I don't want to scroll through eBay and buy stuff that I don't need. If for some reason you do have a bunch of these tapes laying around and you want to see what's on them, well, number one, I question what industry you got these from because this is by far from a consumer product. But if you do, I highly recommend this. This is a Sony DNW-S280 HD cam recording deck. Notice I didn't say Betacam. We'll come back to that later. This particular deck can record 1080i at 60 frames or 1080p at 24 frames. This was very, very advanced for the time. This was, I want to say, early thousands when this one was made. I didn't check the default date on it before I replaced the battery, but it's up there in age. This is one of the last decks we made that could do multi-format before we finally switched over to optical and ditched tape for good. Looking at it, it has all of the non-standard, non-consumer controls on it. But the big advantage with this one, as opposed to my SR or DSR 1500, is we actually have a screen, a color one at that. So we get to see a lot of more information. And what's really cool about this one is that you can actually play back video on the screen. I wish this thing had a speaker, but it doesn't, because otherwise this would be a fantastic playback device. Plus being an editor, though it doesn't have the editing controls, so that's another topic we'll get into later. So before I go any further, I need to explain what the problem was with all of the different decks that you could have gotten from Sony at the time and what made this one so special. Let's take my DNW-A25 here. This is a Betacam SX field recorder, basically. That's what it is. So what this was designed to do, and this is hilarious given how big it is, it's basically an on-site editor. You can do anything with this that you would with a normal full-size machine that I don't have currently. I have a DNW-A75, but it is broken as I'll get out, and it has taken me months to try and fix it, and it still chews tape. So that's cool. Normally what happens is, like say in a van or something, you would have two of these, and they bolt together side by side. You have a couple of jumpers that connect to them, and you have two tapes, the original and your master. So you would do all of your editing with the original tape while it's talking to the master tape, and it's a tiny broadcast studio. It's really cool. I don't have the knowledge or machines to do that with, but the whole point is this deck can only do Betacam SX. Now, this was fine for the time. You didn't need a multi-format deck. It just wasn't necessary. You dealt with the format you had, and that was pretty much it. The only time that you wouldn't want to do that is if you were revamping the entire studio to go to a newer format, which wasn't really in the cards for most low-end local television studios. But let's say that you wanted to watch or broadcast an older tape that you had sitting on an archive shelf, but you don't have the equipment anymore because it was all scrapped and considered obsolete. Well, now you've got a problem, because if you're going to rerun old footage for, I don't know, say all those Looney Tunes reruns that they used to put on Cartoon Network 10, 15 years ago, that was cool, but guess what? All of those tapes are not the modern format, which means they can't be read. Enter something like this. That's where these really come into shine. They're not meant to record on older formats. They play back just about everything though. So instead of going back and having to find all of your original equipment, try and figure out how to hook it up, and utilize basically 10% of its capability because all you want to do is play it back, it's a hassle, and it's expensive, and it's silly. That can take care of it. Almost all of it. And I'd like to show you how. So here's what we have. We have in gray the original Betacam format. That took me a while to find. There's not that many of these out there anymore, and Lord knows I haven't seen an original Betacam deck maybe once for sale. They basically don't exist. Where Betacam started to really get a hold was Betacam SP, and you can find those anywhere, but it's cool to see an original Betacam tape. This one in particular is not a Sony, but I don't know. Beggars can't be choosers. On the right in yellow, which is the ugliest thing. You know what? Let me grab a blank. Look how yellow this thing is. Why did you do that, Sony? So for reference, the normal colors that these tapes are dark blue, gray, darker gray, whatever gray that is. And then for some reason, yellow is mixed into it too. I don't know. I can't help but call them banana tapes. Betacam SX is a sub-format, you could call it, of digital Betacam. It uses a slightly different compression protocol or codec, and it was supposed to be the digital format of the future, but a much more cost-effective variant. So video quality-wise, it wasn't quite there with digital Betacam, but it was good enough for pretty much everybody. And on the top we have HD Cam, which is our entry into HD, 1080, 1080i, and P. I wish I had my digital Betacam tapes to show you, because that'd be kind of cool to kind of wrap them all up in the same way, but I can't because, again, if it's not obvious, this is not my studio. This is a temp setup that I had to put together because I'm out of town. Okay, let's stop beating around the bush and actually talk about how this works. So what happens when you have 5 different formats that use the exact same cassette shell? Well, from a human perspective, we can differentiate it because of the color of the tape. Machines can't do that. So how does it work? Some of you can already see this. Look very carefully at the center of each of these tape shells And notice how each of them have a different punch key on it. Yes, each one of the machines that was built all the way from Betacam SP have a punch code identifier within them. They're basically little pogo pins with springs that, depending on the shell that's inserted, will contact the machine in a specific way. This tells the machine what format to use and how to read it, because there are many different things that changed over the years with all the different formats. The drum speed changed, the head count changed, how it was read digitally is changed. All of that has to be accounted for if you have a multi-format deck. So here's kind of a fun example of that. So I'm going to bring this over here. I'm working on getting a pack mic, but it's kind of hard because they're expensive and I already can't afford to fix this thing properly. So let's have some fun. So we're going to go from old to new, starting with the original Betacam. Now what I want you to do is listen. Did you hear that at the end there? It sounded like something was winding real fast, almost like a bike that was revving. So that's actually a head cleaner, and it's very interesting. There is a lot going on inside this machine and a lot of heads spinning round in a circle. Way more than you would ever find in a VHS deck, which is a whopping 2. And the fact is, with how much tape goes round and round in these things for how many thousands and thousands of hours, my DNW-A25 has 80,000 hours on it. I think I did the math. That's 24 years turned on. That's nuts. But the point is, as the tape goes around this drum, things get clogged. So every time a tape ejects, it just kind of bats it clean like a little duster. Kind of fun. So what's cool about that is this is an auditory cue of how to identify which tapes are in here, but it still can't necessarily tell the whole story. That's where this little icon in the top right of this screen comes in. Depending on what tape's in it, it gives you two things: a visual, which is a color code, as well as a dual letter code. OX is used for oxide, which is the original formula and the best way to identify original Betacam. When an SP tape is inserted, it shows SP. With SX, it's SX. And with HD, well, you get the point. UI on this thing is pretty standard for broadcast stuff. Again, it's not meant for consumers, but if you understand what you're looking at on the back of this thing, it can be very helpful. Component out is sadly not a thing on it, but because it's a full-fledged VTR, composite looks pretty good on this thing, way better than you would ever expect to find on a VCR. Firewire isn't here because this isn't a DV or DV cam deck, so pretty much all you get is composite in, out, and SDI. Now that is perfectly fine for this. Like I said, the composite looks amazing. I wish all of my composite stuff looked like this. And SDI is SDI, but you also still have XLR in and out. The front panel is really nothing to gawk at besides the screen. It's pretty much the same as all the other half racks that Sony made at the time. The one exception to that, though, is this jog wheel. This is an amazing addition, and I wish all of my half racks had this, because wow, that makes scrubbing through so much faster. You don't have to like Fast forward, pause, fast forward, pause. Is this where I want to know? Is this where I want to be? I don't know. Let's do this again. Oh crap, I missed it. Time to go back. Oh, I went too far. It gets rid of all that. It's such a pain. So, much more precise. Much appreciated, Sony. The other nice thing too about this deck is because it's newer, it's not going to fail as fast. My other machines, they're starting to have had it. And I'm not a technician. I don't know how to use an oscilloscope and like tweak RF signals and try and figure out how it all works. It's just, I don't have that experience, and I never will, probably. So keeping this alive, or at least passively, is gonna be a lot easier. I have had to replace the battery though. Something interesting about that. I don't know if the digital Betacam decks do this, but the S280, my A25, and my A75 all use this weird little square slot-in style, I don't know, looks like a Lego brick, honestly, type lithium battery for the clock, and also your NVRAM, which is kind of important. This going bad is the equivalent of your CMOS dying, which is not a problem in a DV-Cam deck or a Betacam SP deck. Why is an issue with the SX machines? But watch out for that. It's good though for when you buy one used off of eBay and a seller reports it as error 96, NVRAM failure. That's just a dead battery. It costs like $10. So go fix it, especially if it's a low hour machine. That's likely the only thing that's wrong with it. I just noticed, I forgot. Yeah, if you look really closely at this tape, you can actually see the 24 FPS or 60i for interlaced on the shell. So that's kind of cool. And depending on which one of those you use, I forgot, the faster or more frames you want. So if you want to use 1080i 60 frames interlaced, you actually only get about 32 minutes on this tape, or 40 minutes if you use 24 frames per second, which, you know, makes sense. The more bandwidth you have, the faster the tape speed has to go. So yeah, that's my S280. I love her very much, and I'm very happy that she's going to come home with me and be a part of my deck, because that's probably going to be my primary recording source for my SX tapes from now on, because, well, honestly, as opposed to the A25 and 75, I trust it a lot better. All I have to do is input SDI from my DSR 1500 after my tape in DV is mastered, and then boom. That's how I make these. Bit of a short one, but a fun one, at least to me. I mainly just wanted to make a video and get it out there because I enjoy the editing process with music in the background. It's calming. It's a thing for me to do on a Saturday night because I am an introverted nerd. So this is the crap I do, and it's expensive. This chair is so annoying. You've probably been having to listen to it the whole time. Well, there's my tape alarm. So yeah, thanks for watching. If for some reason you have a ton of these laying around, then I would recommend this. It's pretty good at its job.